What is up, everybody? Welcome to Party on Broad. Today, we are breaking down everything Eagles versus Packers, matchups to watch, storylines to watch, predictions, and more. Joining me is Rob Langy at Philly_Madness. We're all fantasy footballed out over here, but the show must go on. What's up, Rob?
Yeah, man, I didn't even leave my couch to go down to my studio tonight. I just said, you know what? Put the computer on the lap, and we're going to pod right from here tonight. But with that said, man, we're here. We've made it. So
You finally made it, man. It's been a long
football is
offseason.
here.
It's been a long preseason. There's a lot of question marks. It's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know, man. Let's just jump right into it. Should we jump right into it?
Yeah, let's go. Let's roll.
Let's talk about top storylines to watch between the Eagles and the Packers. Top storylines. I don't know Rob's answer. He doesn't know mine. I'm going to go first or second?
Yeah, I'll go first here. I'll go first.
Do
I
it.
think for me, it's going to be, look, we've talked so much about the revamped secondary for the Eagles, and we know that this Packers team can score in bunches. We saw it in the playoffs last year. So I'm going to say the Eagles secondary versus these, there's not one star receiver, but they got a lot of guys that could get out there and catch the ball. And they have Jordan Love, who proved he's here. He's made it in this league. And if I have any concerns, it's the secondary against Jordan Love and those receivers and how they stack up in game one.
Yeah, I'm so happy you said that because we're going to be talking more about that during our matchups to watch. But my storyline to watch is the exact opposite. I'm looking at the front seven because if there's anything that I think we learned throughout the preseason is the pass rush just isn't right now. How does the front seven respond, rebound in 2024 under Vic Fangio? How do they attack the quarterback? How do they stop the run? Starting up front, we're finally going to see Vic Fangio and his gap and a half defense where it's going to be really fun to see this defensive tackle rotation. Who are going to be the dudes filling the gaps? Milton Williams' breakout season starts on Friday. I think we might even see some Moro Jomo, who looks like a really good fit for that Vic Fangio scheme, controlling the gaps. It's going to be really exciting. And then you look at the pass rush. I think it's going to be fun to see a defensive coordinator that's going to want to bring a lot of pressure and different types of pressure. We're going to see a lot of second-level blitzers.
Yeah.
The Eagles have a lot of linebackers that are actually very solid at this. We're going to see edge rushers dropping back into coverage. One of the reasons why I think Jalen Hunt gets more snaps than Nolan Smith by the end of the season. But I'm just fascinated by the Eagles' front seven. This is the bread and butter of like Howie Roseman and the Eagles that we've grown up and known. And there's just a lot of question marks. Does Josh Sweat return to his 2022 form? Can Jordan Davis make a consistent impact on the interior? Is Jalen Carter the all-pro we expect him to be? Is Nolan Smith a bust? Is Bryce Huff a flash in the pan? And can he fit that Vic Fangio defense dropping back into coverage? That's my biggest storyline.
Yeah, I think the front seven's a huge storyline, and I think you're right. I think first you're going to see Fangio blitz a lot more than maybe what we're accustomed to. I have a feeling, you mentioned the linebackers who could blitz. We know Devin White's strength is not necessarily in coverage; it's getting downhill.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued to see all that. I think everything for me, this game comes down to: are the Eagles able to contain that Green Bay offense?
Yeah.
Whether it's with the front seven, the secondary, whoever. Because if they are, look, I still believe they're going to score points. I believe the Eagles' offense is elite, and until they show me otherwise, that's what I'm going to think they are.
Yeah, it's all about the Eagles' defense, and can they do enough to slow down that Packers offense, which pretty much was top 5 across the board by season's end last year, especially the second half. Let's get to our top matchups to watch. Top matchups to watch. And what's really interesting between the Eagles and the Packers is there's some weird similarities between these two teams that I'm kind of interested to kind of get into and kind of unravel. But Rob, lead us off, man. Where do you want to go first?
Well, I talked about the defensive side of the ball, so let me go over to the offensive side of the ball. And I think the matchup is very intriguing to me just because it's week 1 and we haven't seen it yet. And that's going to be the interior of the Eagles offensive line. That's Cam Jurgens. That's Mekhi Becton. I mean, we know Landon Dickerson, but you're talking about 2 guys that are in 2 new positions playing against, an interior defensive line. And this is a matchup that I'm going to watch a lot. And we're going to see it when it comes to run the ball between the tackles. We're going to see it in pass protection. I think these 2 guys playing well will make this offense so much better if they can handle these new positions well. And that's one of the first areas I'm looking at is interior O-line versus interior D-line with the Eagles versus Packers there.
That's a great one. That was one of the first ones off the top of my head. Yeah. How about, we just talked about it. I am concerned about it, even though it's not my biggest concern right now. But Eagles linebackers versus the Green Bay tight ends. Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. We all know that Packers offense is very good. They were 5th best in the league in EPA per play, while in 11 personnel. And the Packers have 2 tight ends that are excellent athletes that could cause problems for the Birds. Luke Musgrave is widely considered a potential breakout star in 2024. He had a raw athletic score of 9.78 out of 10 coming out of the draft. Tucker Kraft, solid backup, one of the better tight end 2s in the league. He had a RAS score of 9.67 out of 10. The Packers offense ran 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 31.6% of the time in 2023. That ranked 3rd most in the NFL. On the other end, the Eagles gave up the 8th most yards to tight ends last year in that middle area of the field. So I still have my question marks, sorry, Rob, regarding Devin White. Zach Bond has never played inside backer before. Nolan Smith, what is he really? How quickly does Jeremiah Trotter pick up the defense and Nakobe Dean pick up the defense and play more and more snaps as we expect? There were shockingly positive developments for this group this preseason, but that's my biggest matchup to watch, man. And can the Eagles linebackers not be as much of a liability compared to years past?
Yeah, I think what I like about that position this year is the amount of linebackers they have. I feel like we've gone in and in past years, and it's like literally only 2 linebackers. Like, I seem to believe Nakobe Dean's going to still get a fair share of snaps split with Zach Bond. I don't think this is just Zach Bond's job at this point. And maybe I'm just being naive. It could very well be them being naive. But obviously it's a concern. Jesus, I can't remember the last time tight ends didn't kill the Eagles. I feel like it's been a decade long that we've been talking about this. So, we're going to have to see. And it's a good test right off the bat. I'm really expecting a high-scoring game between these 2 teams, which means it's probably going to be like a 10-6 final. But I expect a lot of points in this one because I just don't know if the defense for the Eagles is ready yet.
Yeah, I agree. And that I'm going to go to the other side. How about Jalen Hurts and Kellen Moore versus new defensive coordinator, former Boston College head coach Jeff Hafley? He's a new defensive coordinator there for Green Bay. According to True Media, the Packers ranked 13th last season in defensive expected points added per rush, man. They were 10th most last year in blitz percentage, 29.3%. Yeah, they have a new defensive coordinator, but we all know, we've all talked about it all off season. I expect, like you said, the Packers to utilize Quay Walker, to utilize Edgerrin Cooper, a second-round pick. What are the two things they're good at, especially in college at Georgia and Texas A&M? It was blitzing up the middle. And that's something that's really going to be tested on this Eagles interior offensive line. I think the Packers defense under Hafley will look a little different. They're going to, kind of employ their edge rushers to do some different things, like put their hands in the dirt a little more, which is something they didn't do a lot last year. But long story short, kind of like the Eagles, like it's still a defense that's kind of learning on the fly. And I expect the Packers corners to really challenge AJ and Devontae and Dotson with a little press on the outside. But this is where Kellen Moore steps in, baby. This is what we want. And if Kellen Moore doesn't outcoach Jeff Hafley, then we've got problems. I expect Kellen Moore to literally line up our top 3 wide receivers all over the place. AJ Brown in the slot. Let's see Jahan Dotson outside. Let's see Devontae in motion. Let's see it all. I want it all. And that's how you're going to get this Green Bay Packers off balance.
Yeah, and I think one of the matchups I'm going to talk about, it's not necessarily a player on Green Bay, but it's Jalen Hurts versus the blitz. I mean, this is what we've waited all off season to see. And not only Jalen Hurts, but do they have the calls? Do they have the protections? Do they have the quick route when the blitz is coming that they can get the ball out to? Is Jalen going to stay in the pocket, or is he going to try and escape right away? All these things I think are going to be crucial because I do believe the Eagles can put up points in this game. But if it looks like last year against the blitz, then all bets are off.
Exactly. The other one is no surprise. It's the exact opposite. And it's because I said it for a reason. Like, I think there are some interesting similarities here, and that's Saquon Barkley versus the Packers linebackers. I think that's a real area that the Eagles could exploit. You look at Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper. I think they've got a lot of upside. They were high draft picks, but that's an area that you could definitely find a mismatch, and that's what Kellen Moore is all about, trying to find those mismatches. I'm excited to see how Kellen Moore utilizes Saquon Barkley. Look at his history in the slot: 41 times in 2023, 32 times in 2022, 27 times in 2021. I expect those numbers to go up like crazy. And Quay Walker, he's got some flaws, man. He's got a pretty high missed tackle rate, 9.2%. He had a quarterback rating allowed when targeted of 109.8 last year. And Edgerrin Cooper, we all know, like, he was one of my favorite guys in the draft last year. But there's going to be a learning curve for him. So how they utilize Saquon Barkley, how much he holds gravity in this offense, and not even just being involved in the play, but I want to see that guy get a lot of targets, not just touches. I want him in the slot, in the wheel routes, RPOs. I want all of it, man. That's where Kellen Moore needs to earn his contract.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's, I'll talk more about Saquon when we get to the X factor part, but you kind of hit the nail right on the head there.
Yep. And then if you're looking for an area that another area where the Eagles could exploit, it's the Packers' interior offensive line. To see a pattern here, it's very interesting. The Packers have about an above-average offensive line, but similar to the Birds, their center and right guard could be an area where they exploit. You look at Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. He was a first-round pick, only played left tackle at Arizona. He's not only moving to guard, but he's also moving from the left side to the right side. And who's he going up against? Jalen Carter in his rookie debut. Oh, my God. And we all know about Jalen Carter, so that could be a huge advantage for the Bird. Then you look at center Josh Myers. He's entering his 4th season. He is not good. He allowed 5 sacks last year. So Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, that could be a huge area where they get into the grill of Jordan Love and start to cause some havoc. Because at the end of the day, like that's why I went with front seven as my top storyline. Like the pass defense is great, but I'm a trenches guy and it always starts up front.
Yeah. Well, and it's, you mentioned going to the left or the right. I remember a few years back, I had interviewed Trey Thomas, and he had said, if you're trying to go from the left side of the line to the right side of the line, is the same as a person who writes left-handed trying to write right-handed.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not easy at all. So yeah. And once again, this kind of brings me into my X factor. So I'll hold it, but you're right. I thoroughly agree with the interior there playing a major role in this one.
All right, let's get to our Eagles fill in the blank. Eagles versus Packers. Let's do it. The Eagles will beat the Packers because fill in the blank, Rob.
The Eagles will beat the Packers because they control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I know that's a simple answer, but I really think that that's the key to this game. If they can keep Jalen Hurts upright and give him some time back there, I don't expect the Packers to be able to cover the Eagles for very long when they talk about all the weapons they have out there. On the opposite side of the ball, if they can get in the backfield, if they can pressure Jordan Love, if they can make them one-dimensional by stopping the run and not letting Josh Jacobs get off and go, then I think that's going to benefit the secondary. That's going to let the pass rushers kind of pin their ears back and go. So to me, look, I know it's your thing too, but this game specifically, until we see this team more and get the chance to know them, they've got to dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And if they do, I think they win.
You're literally like looking at my notes here. It's exactly what I have. For me, I think if the Eagles win, it's because the O-line holds up against the Packers pass rush. You look at Rashawn Gary, who's a very good pass rusher, but he's going up against Lane Johnson. That's basically a wash. You have Preston Smith and Lucas Van Ness, who I like Lucas Van Ness coming out of college, versus Mailata. More of an interesting battle, but that's probably a wash. And I think the reasons the Eagles will beat the Packers, and we'll get into predictions a little bit, is because I think the Eagles can handle the Packers four-man rush consistently. And I think Cam Jurgens and Mekhi Becton can do a good job managing Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, and Devontae Wyatt. So that's it, man. That's if the Eagles can keep Jalen Hurts clean and, Kellen Moore can design some plays for getting Jalen Hurts, maybe some rollouts, getting him in rhythm on offense, I think we're going to be good. Let's throw it to the flip side, Rob. The Packers, the Eagles will lose to the Packers because
the defense can't get off the field. For whatever reason, if it's the pass rush, if it's that they're not, the secondary's not ready to go. Has Darius Slay lost a step? Look, you're talking Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs. Then you talk about the tight ends. The backers can't cover the tight ends. They're not stopping the run. I mean, if they can't get off the field, then all the Green Bay Packers have to do, and they're a smart enough team to do it, is control the clock, get first downs, long drives. And, the Eagles are I guess the whole NFL is, but I feel like the Eagles offense is very rhythmic and it has to get into a rhythm. And if they have to sit for long periods of time, it's difficult to get into that rhythm.
Yeah.
So for me, the Eagles are going to lose this game if it's that the defense is just not ready to get off the field against a really good offense that I don't think enough people are talking about.
I think this game is crazy even, man. I do. And I think the difference is, so I'll fill in the blank. I think the Eagles will lose to the Packers because the Eagles defense, like you said, not just can't get off the field, but they can't create one to two like turnovers that change momentum in this game. The Eagles, you look back at 2 years ago, among the tops in the league, if not the top, in turnover differential. Last year, the sacks, the turnovers generated were all down. I want to see this defense opportunistic and make a couple big plays that shift momentum for the Eagles because it has to happen. I guess on the other side, I want to see more clock management with the offense. I want to see, and I think we saw bits and pieces of it during the preseason where the Eagles are totally, and it was so refreshing in the bits that we got, but they're totally okay with taking the 5 yards. They're totally good with, becoming a more efficient offense like we saw back in 2022, where they just sat on the clock, and that's what we need. That's what we need. Let's get to our Eagles X factors against the Packers. X factors to watch. I went back and forth on this one probably about 5 different times because there's so many. Who's your Eagles X factor against the Pack?
Yeah, and like I have one on both sides of the ball, but I'll give you the defensive side of the ball right now. And I'm going to say, going kind of to one of my storylines, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, because I think it's going to start with you picked them, didn't you? Yeah, and I think. Listen, and it's because if those two guys in the center of that line can stop the run, can force them to be one-dimensional, and then Jalen Carter can let his finesse moves go off to get to the quarterback, let the edge guys get around, and really put some pressure on Jordan Love. I think that changes the whole game. It doesn't matter how much firepower you have if you're not giving them anything and you know what they're doing because they can't run the football. So if the Eagles – look, I've said it all along that the only way the Eagles can win this game, in my opinion, is if the defense can get stops, because I believe the Eagles are a 24 to 30 point average team this year. Like, I really do. Like, I really think they're going to score that many points a game. But if they can't stop anybody, they're not going to win many games. You know what I mean? So to me, it starts with those two guys. I think, look, they are the centerpieces of this defense now. Whether anybody wants to admit it or not, it's those two guys. It's Carter and Davis. It's back-to-back first-round picks that are the centerpieces for this defense, and I think they're the X factor for Friday night.
No question. I went with Jordan Davis. You look at the Eagles in terms of EPA per play last year. The Eagles had the 3rd worst rushing defense in the league last year. Their EPA per play allowed was nearly 7 times higher than the closest playoff team. That just can't happen. That just can't. Like, they have to be better than that. Brian says Packers offensive line is looking suspect. Rookie LT. He's actually going to be playing right guard, so keep an eye out for that.
Jordan Morgan, that's what they got to take advantage of that. I mean, you have enough talent. I know that the defensive line is not what it's been in years past, but you have enough talent on that defensive line and enough veteran savvy with that you can make things happen. And look, you need Josh Sweat to show the hell up again this year. Like, this has to happen. So, let's see what happens. But I think it all comes down to that matchup, to be honest.
I am all on board with that. Nikki says Carter and Davis in the center will wreck. That's what we need. I mean, we've heard all about Jalen Carter ragdolling Mekhi Becton. Jordan Morgan has a difficult Friday night ahead for him. For sure. Any other X factors you want to throw out there?
The only other X factor I think is Saquon Barkley, because here's going to be his first game with the team. He didn't do much during the preseason. Obviously, he did very little. But if the Packers corners are going to try and take away these wide receivers, well, that's what we've been talking about, right? If you're going to take one part of the game away, something's got to be open. So I believe it's got to be Saquon Barkley's day. I believe he's got to be in the run game, obviously, but also the pass game, spread out wide, motioned a lot. So to me, he's the X factor on offense. I mean, we can always say Jalen Hurts is, right? Like, the reason we never put Jalen Hurts in this section of the show is because Jalen Hurts is always going to be an X factor. We know this. But to me, Saquon Barkley, because if he is dominating early and getting the ball in his hands a lot early, well, now things are going to have to soften up on the outside. And that's when you go to AJ or Devontae or Jahan Dotson in the slot and you really take advantage. So let's hope that Saquon has a hell of a debut out in Brazil.
Yeah. My other guy, I was going to cheat and say Kellen Moore, but that it all kind of blends together.
Yeah.
How about Quinyon Mitchell? Quinyon Mitchell almost had an interception during the preseason. By all means, like from what we hear from Vic Fangio, he's going to be playing quite a bit. He's going to be out there, whether that's in the slot or the outside or wherever, nickel. He's going to be out there. So Cooper DeJean's not ready yet. This defense is all about putting the best players on the field, and maybe it could be Q that has the big turnover. Who knows?
Yeah, that would be huge. I would love to be able to say that we called his name quite a few times.
Yeah.
And then obviously Devin White wins defensive player of the game. I mean, that goes without saying.
Rob, I will send you a 6-pack if Devin White is player of the game.
Hey, let's go. Let's go. That's on air. You guys heard it in the chat.
All right, let's get to our score predictions and prop bets for week 1. All right, this is going to be fun. We're going to be tracking this all season long, week after week after week. Ryan couldn't be with us tonight, but I'll get his tomorrow during Birds of the Round Table. Let's get to player of the game, Rob, versus the Packers. Who you going with?
All right, can you hear me? Because I think my whole screen just froze.
You're back.
All right, good. We're good. All right, player of the game, I'm going to go with the guy I just said is the X factor over on offense. Wait, can you hear me?
You're freezing up, but I can hear you.
All right, hold on. This is what happens when you don't go in the studio and you try and mess around with life. All right, here we go. Oh, no. I'm just frozen up. Hang on, I'll be back.
You're good, man. I'm going to go with my player of the game. If you followed along at all in 2023, I picked this dude to be my player of the game probably about 60% of the games. I look at the weaknesses of the Green Bay Packers. It's got to be a guy on defense that steps up. Give me Jalen Carter for the Birds. That is the guy that, just gets, a handful of pressures, maybe forces a turnover and is all over the Green Bay Packers. Winning team. I'll just do it while Rob gets his shit together. Winning team, give me the Eagles in a very close game. I'm thinking somewhere along the lines of 27-26 Eagles. And it's going to be a great game. I mean, this game's going to come down to the wire. It could go any direction, to be honest. I think I'm a big fan of the Packers. I think they got it going on. And I think there's a lot of similarities between the Eagles and Packers, whether that's defense and positional versatility and weaknesses with inexperienced linebackers and unproven linebackers to the interior offensive line on both sides. Very interesting. Over under on total points. So I just said 27-26. That would put me over. I'm going to go over. Most receiving yards on the Eagles. A lot of people want to say Devontae Smith. You look at Jair Alexander. He's good. I imagine he gets A.J. Brown. But, again, this is Kellen Moore, who's going to be putting his receivers all over the field, in the slot, wherever. I don't necessarily think it matters. At the end of the day, give me A.J. Brown. I think is going to have a huge game coming back. That chemistry between Hurts and A.J. Brown is as elite as it gets. Rushing yards on the Birds. Is it Barkley? Is it Hurts? I'll go Barkley. Over under on Saquon total yards 90.5. This is a Saquon game, I think. There's been times when you can, definitely expose this Packers defense with like zone outside runs. I think this is a game for Saquon to easily go over. Definitely a game that might be a good player of the game choice for Saquon. Over under on Josh Jacobs rushing yards. I'm going to go back to early last season when the Eagles run defense actually started out really strong. And I'm going to go under for this one. And I might be kicking myself for that. But I do think the Eagles do their job and surprise some with their run defense. Total sacks against Green Bay, 2.5. I'm going to go over just because I picked Jalen Carter, and I think he gets at least a couple. Jordan Love interceptions. I'll go over. Over for me for that one. And there's my picks for Eagles versus Packers. Rob, can you hear me?
I'm back. Oh, man, you got it through everything, huh?
Yeah, I just did a rundown. All right, player of the game, I went Jalen Carter.
All right, it's a good pick. I'm going to go Saquon Barkley. I see over 150 all-purpose yards here. I think Saquon has himself a day. I should say that's my player of the game if the Eagles win. I have to give the winning team right now.
Okay. Eagles win.
This is where the chat kills me. I don't think they win this week. I think there's a lot going against the Eagles. I think the fact that this game is in Brazil, it's an up-and-coming Packers team. I haven't necessarily loved the mentality that the team has taken in interviews talking about going to Brazil. Like, I understand it sucks, but they almost seem like it's bothering them at this point. And I'm just not sure if the defense is ready yet. I'm not saying that they're not going to be. I just don't know if they're ready. I think 30-27 is my final score here. I think the Packers, score at will for most of the game and win at 30-27, which gives me an over there.
And then most receiving yards on the Birds.
Ooh.
I want
to be a little different from you. I think it was last year that Devontae did not catch a pass in like the first game of the season. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think Devontae Smith has a solid day as a receiver, so I'll put him there. Obviously, I'm going with Barkley for you here because I do think he can have a big day.
Over.
Yep, over.
I'm going
to say over for Josh Jacobs. I think he gets about 70, 75 yards on the ground.
And then total sacks, 2.5.
I'm going to go under. I don't think the Eagles get in there enough. If they do, they have a chance to win. I just don't think they're going to get in there enough.
I think the game, honestly, like, talk about more similarities. I think the Green Bay Packers are going to want to kind of do the same thing the Eagles do, is get the ball out fast, get it to their speedsters, and get them into open space, and that's what the Eagles are going to do.
Yeah, and that's where the Eagles struggled defensively last year, was when that was happening. So, did Fangio change it enough for week one? I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I just don't love the spot the Birds are in this week. I really don't.
And then over-under on Jordan Love interception, 0.5.
I'll go over. I feel like he'll throw one, but he's probably going to have like 3 touchdowns on top of that.
All right. So we'll be following along with our score predictions and prop bets. We'll go over that next week. Rob, final thoughts?
Yeah, I want to say, when I pick the Eagles to lose, ladies and gentlemen, this is not me rooting to be right. I'm not one of those guys. I don't do this in the hopes of being right. I do this wanting to come on here and be wrong, and they prove me wrong and all that stuff. But with that said, I'm beyond excited to have them back. I cannot wait until Friday. I don't know. Am I on post game Friday, Dives?
Give me a sec.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But I can't wait for that. Philadelphia sports, everything's sort of start rolling back around. It's fall. Kids go back to school Thursday. For me, I don't know why they don't go back tomorrow, but they don't. But so you catch me here, Party on Broad. I am changing the Monday nights at 5:30 for PSD. It was supposed to be tonight, but I had a work thing pop up literally about a half hour before I was supposed to go on air, and that just blew my whole thing out the water. So it'll start next week with a little Eagles recap, Phillies recap, a lot of stuff going on. Philly_Madness. You catch me there. I guess I do want to say on a more serious note, I do want to end this. I haven't been on the air since any of this stuff happened. But obviously the tragic events of Johnny and his brother, Matt Condreau, who were two men that I had the privilege of meeting a couple of times. I knew the sister very well. They all went to the school that I used to teach at. It's just such a devastating story. They were such a nice family. I golfed in his tournament about a month ago. Saw them there, saw both of them there. And I just want to give my condolences to the family and friends and all the people that are suffering this loss, because it shook me, and I didn't even really know them that well. So I can only imagine, but you're all in our thoughts and prayers. And if you guys get an idea, if you go to the GoFundMe page for Maddie's wife, who is pregnant with their first child, and you have a few bucks to donate, I think it would be a really nice thing. So I just wanted to put that out there because I haven't really been able to talk about it, but prayers and condolences to everybody involved there.
Well said, man. Well said. Guys, we'll be back Sunday for a week 3 preview of college football, and then Monday again for everything Eagles versus Packers. We will have a special guest joining us. I will reveal that later. And then if you love college football, I put out 12 winners of the week shorts and a compiled video of all the highlights and all that kind of stuff from week 1 of college football. Tomorrow night we'll be back at it. Birds of the round table, talking more Eagles versus Packers and more college football talk. He is Rob Lange at Philly_Madness. I am Dives, Mr. Crockpot. Thank you everyone for watching. Go Birds. Stay awesome.